Welcome to the 5th episode of Rivanna Review, a program of stories, essays, and book reviews. My name is Robert Boucheron. I will be your host for a half hour of reading aloud with illustrations and author photographs. The print magazine, Rivanna Review, is published 4 times a year in Charlottesville, Virginia, on the Rivanna River. I am the editor. The magazine is available in bookstores on the Main Street Mall in Charlottesville and bookstores in Winchester, Stanton, and Roanoke, Virginia. You can order a copy or a subscription from the website, rivannareview.com. Contributors to the magazine live all over the world, and they write about places far and wide. In this program, we will visit Albuquerque, New Mexico, A Bedside Table Somewhere, Japan in the 1600s, the Holston River in Knoxville, Tennessee, rural Georgia and North Carolina, and a tribal village in Nigeria. The magazine had notices about book sales, literary events, and reading. Book reviews are of titles you may not have heard about from small presses and by authors who are not yet bestsellers. We offer a mix of novels, stories, science, culture, and history. To read the books mentioned here, please visit your local bookstore, online bookseller, or the public library. The magazine ends with news from Habsburg, a picturesque town in the Shenandoah Valley. A future TV episode will bring it to you live. Author interviews and who knows what. The Baby Asks for a Role Model, a story by Lucy Zhang. I don't normally dream, I tell my sister. I'm visiting to help care for her newborn baby, who has a perfect set of brown eyes and an endearingly crooked head. But that was one freaky baby. A third eyeball grew on the side of its face, close enough to peach fuzz hair that, once grown, should be able to cover most of the eyeball. Had too much of my baby? She laughs. Maybe it's a sign from above that you've got diaper fatigue, too much chewable ball and rattle. I think maybe she's right, although I don't admit it. Instead, I leave on my weekly grocery errand to buy another 3 packs of the melon and lychee cakes she loves. I escape the cool, well-ventilated adobe house for the hot desert. During the day, I watch over the baby while my sister goes to work. She works in Sandia Labs, which means she helps build nukes that kill people. I'm just debugging their laser equipment, she says. Maybe she's tied to the notion of a physical office and huge, immobile wind tunnels chaining her down to Albuquerque. She is 6 years older, which to me feels like a generational difference. I can troubleshoot management identity profiles in Azure from anywhere, as long as I have my computer and Wi-Fi. Aren't you afraid the baby will get more attached to me? I wonder aloud. That will never happen, my sister says. She's probably right. I'm not the likable type, the one both humans and animals gravitate toward, a personality that takes half a heart and a liver to maintain. The most I can do is make sure the baby stays asleep, feed it when it cries, and change its diaper. My landlord in California sends me an email inviting me out to dinner at a posh sukiyaki place again. He thinks because I live alone, I always have time to eat out. I reply saying I am out of town indefinitely. My sister wants to buy a cat and a dog to keep the baby company. She thinks it's critical for the child to grow up with pets to foster sociability and empathy, even though we grew up with none. I'm afraid she can't handle caring for so many pooping organisms. More importantly, I don't want her leaving a dog at my place for a week when she goes on her rock climbing expeditions. On my own, I stretch every hour, touch my toes, stand up in a tree pose, lean right and left to crack both sides of my back and shoulder blades. My body feels stiff, rusted, like it'll never move as it once did. You're not the one recovering from childbirth, my sister says. I'm recovering from life, I say, and traumatizing baby dreams. This time the baby spoke perfect English and Chinese, spitting out ah ya and boo yao, and never couldn't figure out what they were so vehemently rejecting. They hardly know anything about the world. What's there to reject, my sister says. I even offered them porridge, I continue, and they said, booyah, never. Probably for the better. You add too much fish sauce and salted duck egg to the congee. Alarm Clock, story by C.R. Bideman. He is marvelous. I feel it in his fingertips, in his fingerprint. I've memorized every swirl and whirl. When he wakes to my call, I taste the sweat on his skin, drenched in terror, and it tastes like the sea. Does he know how badly I want to go off, to call to him, love, 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 love? I want to say it as many times as I can before he reaches for me. Maybe love isn't what he hears, but on some level he understands. When morning comes, he will not hear my love, but maybe he will feel my love in my presence beside him. Or will he feel betrayed, denied for once the loud affirmation? Does he care that he's just a worker drone? Does his projects don't amount to anything more than grist? Outside the window, far below, all I hear are turning cogs. A city runs on cogs. An analog clock runs on cogs. That's just life, I tell him when the power goes out and back on. 12 o'clock, I repeat. That's just life. Over and over I tell him, but he dreams in color and he can fly. So being a cog is a rude awakening. He needs a creative outlet. Nobody appreciates him. That's the real problem, not her. Deep down, he knows she's broken. He's deluding himself there, and he might be fired tomorrow for sleeping in. Will she be there for him then, when he's broke? Where is she now? Not with him. She's a nurse, which is important, but she's always on call. He'll never get used to that. He needs someone steady who stays put. Someone who, when she's with him, is with him 100%. Not a drone, but a devotee. He should see the way she looks at me, as if I'm her enemy. I don't have her power, the power to leave. She's too young for him. She could leave and devastate him, and then he'll be alone and that much closer to destruction. Not one beer, not one internal organ, but a whole body closer. If he ends it all, I hope he takes me with me in the bathwater and plugs me in. Or if I stay silent, could it be a fresh start? He'll get a new job, something with an end product, like instruction. He'll drink less, get fit, go to classes and learn to cope. He'll have to set me the night before, so he won't be late. Clear-sighted, he'll see through that dramatic nurse, and he'll be sure to slide my switch all the way, and then I'll tell him my secret, that the symbols on my face are not units of time, but a digital proof of a beating heart. Rain rusts the well of a passing car. A wet cat sleeps beneath a dumpster on wheels. We and other silent companions keep vigil through the night, waiting long and patiently until it's nearly dawn, and you need to wake up. Please wake up. Please, please wake up. Basho, The Mind of Autumn, essay by Karl Planck. In the autumn of 1684, Matsuo Basho left his house in Edo, now called Tokyo, and began to walk west. He traveled empty-handed, packing no supplies, and carrying only the staff of an ancient who was reputed to have passed into nothingness. A Zen Buddhist, he put his belief into practice. Basho journeyed toward Ueno, where he had been born, and his mother was buried the previous year. A son's pious pilgrimage, perhaps, or possibly he takes to the road simply because it is autumn, and the mind of autumn requires leavings. Basho had been too ill to attend his mother's funeral at the time. To express his devotion, he reunites with his surviving family, and a brother gives him strands of his mother's white hair. Autumn frost, Basho calls it, autumn frost that melts in the heat of his tears. Basho wrote about the 1684 journey as the records of a weather-exposed skeleton. 4 subsequent travel sketches include The Narrow Road to the Deep North. The introduction to the Penguin edition says, "What must be borne in mind in reading the travel sketches of Basho is that travels in his day had to be made under very precarious conditions, and that few people, if any, thought of taking to the road merely for pleasure or pastime." Basho's work shows his mastery of the haibun form, a hybrid genre combining prose poetry with haiku. The travel journals were not diaries as much as reflections of his experiences and perceptions. If chronicles, they recorded his imagination and sensitivity at work. He had been suspicious of travel diaries, noting that reports of whether it rained along the way and when it stopped had no import. One should write, he said, only of the truly remarkable. This is what his journal does: witness to the remarkable as seen from the footpath. He advises, spend nights on a journey, then you'll know my poems. Autumn Wind. In mid-autumn he begins to journey, and his poems offer the wind of the eighth moon that had urged his steps. Basho sees the exposed skeleton of a dead body by the roadside and feels a deathly chill that penetrates his core. The first haiku of the 1684 journey tells us that the autumn mind begins with bleached bones on my mind. The wind pierces my body to the heart. The poetic association of autumn and mortality is common enough. Gerard Manley Hopkins in Spring and Fall, for example, portrays a young girl's sadness, then notes that she does not realize she mourns already for herself. Margaret, are you grieving over Golden Grove, unleaving? Where Margaret faces autumn gently, innocently, Basho sees denuded, unburied bones, a brutal reality that is cold and stabbing. There is no innocence, only immediate awareness of an uncivilized scene. These bones, left above ground, open to elements and predation, are castaways, the leftovers of what once was a body and is no more. What Basho imagines in the abandoned pile of bones is the disappearance of a life, his own. Learning a Place by Its Waters, an essay by Charles Dodd White. We put in on the Holston River beneath the bridge on Asheville Highway. It's Sunday morning and still warm, despite being late October. The boat, an Old Town Saranac canoe, has only touched the water once before. That was yesterday with my wife, April. On that outing, fish ripped the surface like it accused them of grievous acts. Today is my stepson Ian's turn, and there is a calmer air. I see only the occasional ring of some soft aquatic nuzzle. As we wade out and the canoe settles into the river, a tractor trailer rolls across the bridge overhead, bucks the substructure so that it sounds like the whole span could come down on our heads. It's an odd start to the placid day on the water I had planned. Knoxville is still growing its way around us, though it's been more than 4 years since we moved here. This place, it seems, is a slow vine. Still, the balance on the water is familiar. Even before the first paddle stroke, there is that tug and give that means the boat is fitted to its natural state. I know it well and welcome the change, but Ian is nervy in that young teenage way. He's always had dizzy energy, and in the boat that anxiety is as obvious as a handshake. We rock too much for such a broad-beamed canoe. But when I tell him to settle, he does, and before long we are slotted to the waterway. We simply glide. Like so many Americans, my wife and I moved for work. That is what Knoxville was for us after living in western North Carolina for so many years, a move of necessity. It's hard, though not uncommon, to shift homes when you're on the verge of middle age. Hard, too, if you're an adolescent. But the effort was collective, and we settled into an old stone cottage to make something familiar out of what seemed strange at the outset. I think it helps a great deal that there's a river within easy driving distance of our front door. I like the idea of being able to step off into something that is in perpetual circulation. Ian's adjustment to this place has been by degrees. He was raised in Asheville, where liberal politics and a more generally permissive culture are largely a matter of course. Knoxville intimidated him at first, I believe. It's a conservative town, and the kids don't preen under the undivided attention of secure parents. They're made with thicker armor, but he's learned to hammer together his own version. After Ethan's death, he had to plug himself into a new role, as we all did. He shed some of his nerves, though he sometimes needs to be reminded to slow down and take things in. The river has proven the ideal place for that. It's a way for us to let time and memory carry us and think about what things were like once and what they are now. Book Review: A Year Without Months by Charles Dodd White. Charles Dodd White grew up near Atlanta, Georgia, the only son of a single mother. He married young, enlisted in the Marine Corps, and served 4 years at a post in the Mojave Desert in California. He attended college and graduate school back east, divorced, and lived for a time in Asheville, North Carolina. Now in his 40s, married again with a stepson, he teaches English at Pellissippi State Community College in Knoxville, Tennessee. A Year Without Months is a collection of 14 personal essays written over the past decade, a fragmented memoir. The essays are almost in chronological order. Together, they sketch a writer's life which is as full of incident as his fiction. Frequent themes are guns, hunting in the woods, fishing in the river, drink and drugs, violence, endurance, and masculine behavior that flaunts all of the above. White meditates on the loss of 4 relatives, his mother and 3 men, the 3 closest in blood, my father, my uncle, and my son, all dead by suicide. The death of his son Ethan at age 18 in 2015 began a year of mourning, which gave rise to the title essay. Placed at the end of the book, there are glimpses of a grandfather and other male relatives, boorish and rooted in cultural traditions that White has rejected, as in, Why I Don't Hunt Anymore. A Georgia lawyer named Jim Ray gets harsh treatment in The Cabin for his grasping ways and hypocrisy. Southern Man is an unsparing portrait of White's uncle Buddy Dodd, a bachelor, real estate appraiser, heavy drinker, and racist. White passed a good deal of his boyhood in the filthy house and under the questionable care of his Uncle Buddy. Apart describes White's mother toward the end of her life, troubled by physical and mental illness in a squalid trailer. White passes judgment on these people, but he is equally hard on himself. In Underweight, he hikes with friends, lags behind, and makes rookie mistakes. What redeems the sad stories is a gift for presenting significant details and sharp memories. A wry humor emerges in the telling. What might be unbearable loss lightens to manageable pain. Drink in hand, White is good company, a worthy son of Appalachia. Book review, How the World Really Works, Science by Vaclav Smil. Review by Ed Meek. Vaclav Smil would like a few words with you about the science behind how we got here and where we're going. He's had enough of people making outlandish predictions, warning us about the apocalypse, and telling us to go green while having little idea where their energy comes from, how their food is produced, or how the world really works. Smil admits that climate change is a universal problem. At the same time, he goes into detail to convince us that we are not about to stop using gas, oil, and coal anytime soon. In the United States, we do not have the infrastructure to do so. In Africa, India, and China, people still need inexpensive sources of energy like coal. Moreover, it is fossil fuels that enabled us to develop our economy and affluence, our ability to build and heat and to air condition our homes and businesses, to transport people, food, and materials, and to feed our growing population. Smil tells us that airplanes, ships, and heavy-duty trucks are not about to be powered by batteries in the foreseeable future. In addition to fossil fuels providing us with most of our energy, they are integral to our food production. They power all field machinery. They are used to transport, store, and irrigate crops. They are also used to produce the farm equipment and machinery, the fertilizers, and the agrochemicals, not to mention the construction and powering of greenhouses. Cutting back on eating meat will help reduce carbon emissions, but it won't come close to eliminating them. Even the production of vegetables requires fossil fuels. Tomatoes are grown in plastic-covered greenhouses and shipped by truck. What about fish? Fishing boats are powered by diesel motors. Methane is used to make ammonia, which is used to make fertilizer, which has allowed us to increase yields on crops. Plastics made from petroleum are everywhere. Bottles, packaging, parts of cars, toys, equipment, nylon, Teflon, medical equipment, electronics, other key elements to the world we've created. Steel and concrete. were produced by burning fuels at high temperatures. Another product derived from crude oil is asphalt. Think of all those roads and highways in the world. Overhauling the way we live will not come by setting unattainable goals. Book review: Alien Stories by E.C. Osondu. E.C. Osondu was born in Nigeria, where he worked as an advertising copywriter for years. He has been a professor of English at Providence College, a Catholic liberal arts school in Providence, Rhode Island, since 2008. He published the book of stories, Voice of America, and the novel This House Is Not for Sale. This book collects 18 stories set in the United States today or in Nigeria in the hazy past. In our village, the stories play on the word alien, which can mean strange, foreign, or extraterrestrial. Science fiction is on the table, along with realistic glimpses of people today. Concise, composed, and pithy, these are parables that never preach, tales true to life. Debriefing offers 15 pieces of practical advice, starting with this: do not buy a car, do not drive, ignore advice to obtain an international driver's license before your arrival. American cops do not know what an international driving license is. Spaceship is a witty satire on African customs, the village elders, and the modern outsider. An alien spaceship lands in the village. The alien who emerged from the spaceship did not appear much different from us. The only thing about him was that, though dressed in a military uniform, he looked quite short. He acted like a man whose vehicle had broken down. The alien is picked up by a rescue spacecraft. The villagers offer sacrifices to the disabled vehicle. After some bad weather, they shun it. Soon, grasses and creeping vines and thistles and wild shrubs began to sprout around the spaceship. Alien and Actors, the lead story, is more subtle and sinister, like a George Saunders story. At a place called The Ranch, which resembles the TV reality show Survivor, a group performs ethnic cliches for the public. The narrator enacts Africa. He gets a great Insta rating and does not have to do a self-crit like the others. Meanwhile, Ling does not like Chinese food, and she tells Chinese folktales that end in disaster. She is pulling the ranch down and is eliminated. Osondu is not the first to use alien as a metaphor for racial difference, but he handles race as an immigrant, not as a political activist. His fiction is more realistic than a call to action or cry for healing. The alien is human. Book review: Now You Know It All, Stories by Joanna Pearson. You might suppose a psychiatrist would delve into the minds of her fictional characters, find deep meanings, and bring light to the murk that lies within. But in Now You Know It All, Pearson is as baffled as the rest of us. What she brings is not explanation, but a knack for telling stories full of ominous action and dark corners, like Joyce Carol Oates. But if Oates has a relentless drive toward bodily harm and death, Pearson is sane. Rome features two college students on a summer trip to Europe more than 20 years ago. By the time they reach Rome, they are hot, exhausted, sick of so much art, and sick of each other. The fact that they are boy and girl, but not quite a couple, only makes it worse. The girl tells the story. She goes off by herself to Tivoli, falls in with a missionary family, horribly misunderstands them, and returns to play a nasty trick on Paul, the travel companion. It's a brilliant sketch of Americans abroad and of youth. Boy in the Barn is a straightforward exercise in Southern Gothic. Two sisters are sent in summer to stay with grandmother, who tries to lock them in at night when she goes out to drink. They escape to spy on their neighbor. Our mother had told us that the man who owned the parcel of land behind grandmother's place had a boy locked up in his barn. At night, the man let the boy out but kept him tied to a stake. The boy ate table scraps and drank rainwater from a bucket, pacing the yard on the radius of his tether like a dog. An explosion and fire destroy the barn, and that's only the warm-up. The whaler's wife relocates to Boston, where foreboding, spying, and sex games take on a grim New England flavor. An innocent girl narrates. A white-bread suburban girl, hesitant in all manner of things, mousy and unthrilling. The Whitworths host a party, the girl bartends, the wife passes out drunk, and the husband lures the girl upstairs. Mr. Forble is about a disturbed boy. Teddy finds an ad for a prankster online. He hires Mr. Forble to show up and wreck his 13th birthday party, an affair with a funfetti cake in a wooded park. Mr. Forble arrives late. Teddy throws a tantrum, runs away, and his mother sprains an ankle searching for him as bugs and darkness close in. News from Hapsburg, Tittle Tattle. From the lifestyle column called Tittle Tattle, printed in the Vindicator, the weekly newspaper of Hapsburg, Virginia, here is a selection. Antique toasters. Ernie Watkins, known for his collection of antique toasters, attended the annual convention of the International Small Appliance Guild, hosted by Augusta Expoland in Fishersville, Virginia. ISAG is a swap meet and exhibition of vintage toasters, toaster ovens, mixers, waffle irons, blenders, dicers, hot plates, and crock pots from the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It's NAFTA for gadgets, Watkins says. A hardware store clerk, he comes by his hobby naturally. I showed my Kitchen Lord toaster with its unique embossed crown design and my Cookright 750 model. From the side of the original box, he reads, the patented crumb tray collects breadcrumbs, poppy seeds, raisins, oatmeal flakes, and other toast-related debris for easy disposal or use in standard domestic bird feeders. An exhibit of antique waffle irons got my attention, he says. Beyond the square grid you see all the time, they had patterns and shapes like a daisy pinwheel shield and heart. The 5-pointed star was nice. There was a rare paddle wheel steamship model. The exhibit card said it was once used on a Mississippi riverboat, but it was marked not for sale. That's the problem with these shows. Something catches your eye and you zoom in and you pick it up to see how it's put together. You search for a label and you start to get excited, and then you turn it over and boom. For exhibit only, it says. Item for display purposes. No se vende. It gets aggravating, kind of like bait and switch. But I met some good people and I got some ideas. I'll be back next year for sure.